Art Pop Talk is excited to announce that the presenting sponsor of this podcast is Zencastr. Podcasting remotely can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be. Zencastr's all-in-one web-based solution makes the process quick and painless, the way it should be. So you guys have heard me talk about that when I edit our episodes, I always want it to be the best listening experience for you all. You know that I am obsessed with sound quality. I make it a top priority, and Zencastr provides amazing sound quality and HD video. Not only does it make the editing process literally so easy for me, it is the most user-friendly platform that we've used to record. Gianna and I have been using Zencastr even before they became a sponsor of this podcast because it is so accessible, and that is what APT is all about. And it is the easiest platform for all of our guests to join as well. There is nothing to download. They just click the link that I send them and we get recording with no issues. Zencastr is all about making your podcasting experience easy, and with everything from local recording to automatic post-productions in the tool, you don't have to leave your browser to get the episode done. We want you to have the same easy experience as we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. So if you go to zencastr.com/pricing and enter promo code ARTPOPTALK0, you'll get 30% off your first 3 months. Zencastr.com, zencastr.com/pricing, promo code ARTPOPTALK0. It is time to share your story.
Hello, and welcome to Art Pop Talk. I'm Gianna.
And I'm Bianca. Gianna, welcome back. I think I speak for myself and all of the listeners when I say we missed you very much, and we are very excited to hear about your trip.
I'm so excited to be back, and you're in for a real fun recap. I'm going to try and make Rick Steves proud today, but it might just turn into more of a catch-up story time sesh than a kind of thorough deep dive episode. Mr. Rick Steves, please forgive us, but I hope you like it.
Well, I think the best thing about going on a trip is actually the stories that come from it, and knowing the group that you went with, I bet there are a few. Plus, art history is kind of the best when you're just relating your own experiences to the piece or to the memory, so I think it'll be fantastic.
I could not agree more. Let's get back to Art Pop Talk.
Ooh, wow. I'm nervous to be back. I don't know why this break felt longer or something like that. Because I know last summer we took off for a whole month, but maybe just because I have not been as much of a busy bee as you have been globe trekking.
Globe trekking? Do you have a case of the Sunday scaries or the Monday scaries, whatever they call it?
Well, not really, because I don't really do anything during the weeks anymore.
But in relationship to Art Pop Talk, it's ooh,
Oh, yeah. Maybe in relationship to Art Pop Talk.
You do work here, so.
Yeah, I do work here. That's true.
But I mean, I hope you're not scared to come to work here.
No, never. So before we really dive in, Gianna and I are just going to start off with an extended chitty chatty session instead of art news today. Just want to hear what's up. What's up, Gianna?
What's up? Extended chitty chatty.
Extended edition.
Yes, lots of things. I think I'm over my jet lag. Just finished my first week of work back, but I think I have a bit of the Sunday scaries, or just because this weekend went by way too fast, trying to get a lot of adulting things done this weekend, look at my student loans and, file for taxes that I told myself I would do when I came back, which I will be doing. I do have some fun things. I mean, all of my updates are about the trip, so obviously we're going to get into that. But now that I am back, Theben and I were really giving ourselves a break to talk about wedding things kind of after I got done with this trip. And really, I don't have a lot of wedding updates, but kind of a PSA a little bit, or help a sister out, because we are thinking about doing more of a whole kind of buddy moon type style 2-week trip with our like closest friends and family members. And some of the places that we're looking at are Colorado and New Orleans. So if anyone knows of any like beautiful spots or knows of any venue, if we have any art Pop-Tarts in Colorado, which I believe we do, if we have any in Louisiana, help a sister out. Let us know something very like intimate and like cute. Plan my wedding for me if you're interested. But those are kind of some spots that we might be looking at to do a fun little like wedding trip. So yeah, because guys, I don't want to like plan a whole freaking wedding and spend tens of thousands of dollars for a venue in Tulsa or Broken Arrow for that matter. Like I didn't really feel like I signed up for that. And I just am not feeling excited about that. I don't know. So let me know if anyone else has done like a wedding like this too, where you just go on like an excursion with like your closest fam and friends, because I've been trying to like go through all like the Instagram blogs about how to go about this.
Yeah, I feel like that's something I have heard people in my circle talk about doing, but I don't know anyone personally, I guess, who has directly done that. I do have some friends who have attended a wedding in New Orleans, but it wasn't kind of the, buddy moon type that you're talking about. It's more just like the typical
New Orleans,
maybe New Orleans style wedding. Gianna, my vote would be New Orleans.
Yeah,
I think Colorado would be really beautiful too. Actually, I do know someone who did a wedding in Colorado that was very small and intimate. But again, I know that they kind of, I don't want to say eloped, but they had just a small intimate wedding in Colorado.
Yes.
Don't know about the cabin stay situation.
Part of me, I've been kind of like trying to be on the lookout for, I don't know. And I did find something in Colorado that are like cabins or like little getaway like apartment things, but you can also get married there. I don't know. It seems like there's like a lot going on at this location. Yeah. However, I have been trying to look at like houses, like villas at Airbnbs that you can get and with like a scenic view, and like maybe that would be like a fun place to get married. But yeah, it's like weird because I don't want to say like elopement, but then also at the same time I've been looking at some smaller places that are like what are your elopement packages, especially for just a ceremony.
Oh, gotcha.
So yeah, again,
that's interesting.
We
need to come up with another term for elopement, because it's not really, like you said, it's not an elopement. It's just a what's the word I'm looking for? A destination wedding.
Yeah, I guess, but it's small. Like it's funny for me to say like I'm having a destination wedding in like Colorado. Like it's not like I'm going abroad, and for a while that was on the table. However, I think that might be a little complicated with Theban's visa. So we were trying to work that out too, because we have like a bunch of family members coming from different countries. So
are you still thinking 23?
Yeah, if we can make a fucking decision about something. I don't know. I'm at this point where I'm like, yo, like the wedding industry moves so fast. Like, is summer 2023 already out the window at this point?
No, like, I don't think so. I think you would just have to choose, but
yeah, there's too many options.
You have a little over a year and a half if you did summer 23.
Oh my God, that's crazy when you put it in those terms, like a year and a half. But
I think that's a perfect amount of time.
I feel like that's going to go by. Like, I'm going to snap my fingers, and that's just, I'm going to be like,
I mean,
oh, look, like you're
will.
married.
It's been 2 years of COVID, so
oh my God. That's wild. That's wild. Yeah. So anyways, help me out. Plan my wedding. If you want to start a Art Pop Talk Facebook group to be my bridesmaid, I am taking submissions now.
Love it. Love that.
Okay, so what's been going on with you? Because a lot of this episode is basically about me, which I love, but I want to hear about you.
Yeah, well, we do have some very serious updates. This is something we don't have to talk about right now, but also it's just something that I haven't talked to you about, and we might even save it for our special guests who are coming next week, because this is a prominent conversation in their life. But this daylight savings time permanence thing, oh my gosh, Gianna, happy first day of spring. That's something that is to me relatable or related to this daylight savings time conversation, because we had daylight savings time and it is 6:12 here and not even close to being dark yet.
Hallelujah.
And it was 60 degrees here today. It is the first day of spring, and I could not be happier.
The sun is shining. The tank is clean.
We love to see it. We love to see a clean tank here in Boston. And it's truly thrilling. So maybe we can save that, but I thought it was weird. It was like the strangest conversation. All of a sudden, as soon as daylight savings time happened, Congress was like, yeah, let's make it permanent. And for a day, everybody freaked out, and then it just went away. I don't know what's happening with it yet. I was thinking about the art Pop-Tarts today because Andrew and I did just go to the South Boston St. Patty's Day parade. And, you know, I felt like we needed to go because it is a big deal here in Boston. And if we really want to earn our Massachusetts state IDs, then we should probably go to the St. Patty's Day parade. I don't feel the need to go again, which I was telling Gianna before this, but I'm glad that we went just to see the sights, you know? But I was thinking about the art Pop-Tarts because of our parade episode that we did coinciding with the Macy's parade. But apparently this is like the second biggest parade in the country or something, or the second longest running. It's been happening for like 230 years, which to me was wild.
Yeah.
So there's that for you guys. So just thinking about you today. So Gianna, are we ready for the big news?
I'm so ready for this big news. Like, I've been in anticipation for this news.
Well, your girl got a job offer, and we are feeling good about this decision. We're feeling excited, fully revived. I mean, the whiplash from the She's Not Well episode that came out, me crying on the phone to Gianna, the span of a week, this all happened. Gianna and I recorded a week later. I had the job offer. Absolutely wild. I start on April 4th, so I do have quite a bit of time. I mean, I found out at the beginning of March, I guess. And I don't start till April 4th, like I said. So there's a good chunk of time for me to actually kind of take that rest where I am not applying for jobs 24/7, which has been a great feeling. I joined Rover, so I've been like walking dogs and house sitting animals, which has been nice, but I am definitely ready to get started. And this is actually a conversation that we are kind of going to continue with our guests next week. We had a lot of responses to the She's Not Well episode. And again, I just want to thank all of you for listening, but also sending in your own experiences with the job process and how you navigated that and what you guys were going through at that time and what you still might be going through. And it was so heartwarming to, one, not feel alone, but also know that this is clearly a huge problem that people in our community are facing. And I really think that whenever we open up and take that discussion seriously, it could really help some people. And you guys helped me so much. So we are going to kind of continue that next week with two amazing women who we know from our background in the arts, but who might not be on the same paths that, again, like we all kind of thought we were going to go down this one path right after school, and that's not what happened. So yeah, but I feel already very valued at this job, which is completely refreshing. I've gotten to meet some of my new colleagues recently over the past 2 weeks, and they just kept reassuring me how much of an asset I'm going to be to this team and to this company because of my background. And I'm just feeling very grateful. And yeah, I don't even know if I have words, just overwhelmed with such gratitude for them, for my company, for the offer, and for all of you guys. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of dive into that again with like a little bit more nuance and diversity of the conversation next week. So that's what we have.
Yeah. I mean, damn, dude. Happy for you. Know that we freaking are. So exciting. Such joyous news to ring in the spring and the first episode of Art Pop Talk back.
Yes.
So we really appreciate that. But yeah, I'm so excited for next week's episode.
It'll be really fun.
Please stay tuned for that. Before we do get into today's Art Pop Talk on this extended chitty chatty note, I was able to watch some Netflix on my trains, planes, and automobile and donkey situation excursions everywhere.
Yeah.
So I feel as though we should just talk about Inventing Anna a little bit.
Yeah.
Initial thoughts.
I mean, so here's the thing that I think everybody already understands who watched the show, in that when you have a Shonda Rhimes production, it's going to be super Shonda'd. So it was dramatic, and there's nothing that any of us watching can do about that. That is the show that we got. I don't know if that's the one that you wanted, but that's what happened. I loved it for what it was, but I suppose I wasn't the person who needed a super truthful, miniseries about it. When the documentary comes out, which I'm sure it will after, we got Inventing Anna, we have the book, I'm sure that there's a documentary in the works, if not one out already, that I just don't know about. I would love to watch it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it was an enjoyable ride, but of course, I just honestly loved this arts foundation, like the Anna Delvey Foundation aspect of it all. And I kind of wish that it was able to come to fruition. And again, I know that Shonda is going to have us root for the villain in a sense after watching that. There, in the real story, were probably a lot of people who were very hurt, but she's like in the show made out to be this kind of like arts Robin Hood, but still also catering to the elite. And I love the idea of the Anna Delvey Foundation, like this big arts hub. But then part of me also thinks if it would have worked out, it would have been a super problematic, elitist, like just continuation of the garbage that we see from the art world anyway. But I love the idea that it came from a woman stealing money from like wealthy men.
Yeah. I think as a character, because like this was a character, like this was not the documentary. Yes. Anna Delvey was the most well-written character, and Shonda Rhimes just Shonda all over the place, like she was written very good. A lot of the other plot lines, I felt like it really fell apart at the end. Like they stopped like explaining the grip that Anna had on people with the lawyer and with the journalist.
Okay.
There at the end, like after the trial, I was so confused about how like they kept talking about like she has no one else, like she's just a girl. And I'm like, you are her lawyer, like you are not her best friend. And I feel like the show really like, and same thing with the journalists, like they really kind of failed, I feel as though, to talk about like the grip that Anna had on these people. Like how did she get her claws into them? Like I felt like there was a little bit of a disconnect. I got it more with like the relationships in her friend group, but like after she was in prison, like that was all, I didn't really feel like that writing was the best. Also, the journalist really annoyed me. Vivian Kent, the journalist, yeah. And all of the Grey's Anatomy actors, I just can't with. But we did have a nice little Cindy Sherman moment to have the piece be put in a very fancy guest house. So I don't know what we thought about that.
I mean, I feel like this is just something where at the beginning of APT, Gianna and I were really worked up about rich people having works of art just willy-nilly in their home. But as we have evolved, I'm just like, if you have that much money, you're going to put it wherever the fuck you want. And if it's in your fancy guest bedroom where you're showing it off to your guests, like, maybe I would hang my Cindy Sherman in my fancy guest house.
It's a really nice guest house.
Know.
Like, I don't know.
I don't fucking know. I will say, from the actors in that scene, the journalist and her husband, Vivian and her husband, the idea, that scene, I guess, of a kind of middle-class couple entering and being able to stay in this very elite, amazing guest house, I did relate to that a lot. Because with the heated floors or whatever, like regulating their body, I was like, fuck, I would have the exact same experience.
Yeah. Well, dude, I was thinking about that because our aunt has heated floors in her bathroom.
Yes.
And damned if I don't think about that every time I'm on my way to Delaware. I'm like, heated floors.
Yes.
It's so nice. Not that it's like big enough to where I can like lay my body like across the floor, but you know. And then all like the products being like, okay, like we're going to use every single one of these products and then we're going to have a lot of sex. I was like, yes,
yes,
go for it.
Yes.
So yeah, I think all in all, I like the show, and it, as just like a nice watch, especially just for a good travel. Also, I love that uncle of APT, Nick Porro, does a very good Anna Delvey impersonation. It just was everything. It was really funny.
I cannot wait to hear. I'm gonna make him do it at Easter.
Yeah, you should. Oh my god, it was so funny.
Gianna, I feel like you and I were being really funny the other day when we were impersonating. Like, we are not gonna be able to do the accent. It's like, my dad will buy you the money.
I do not have time for this. I do not have time for you.
I kind of love her character. I kind of love the energy.
She made some good points, though, I must say.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm ready to come to the dark side if I'm being real.
No, for real.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't get was, which we don't have time to talk about, but Rachel. Like, I feel like there needed to be a lot more explanation about especially Rachel's relationships with like Laverne Cox and the other girl who worked at the hotel. Like, it didn't really make sense that they were still communicating without Anna. Like, Anna felt like was the glue that kind of held the group together. And then I just feel like that dynamic was weird. And then they were mad at Anna for them making money off of the situation after that came out in court. And I'm like, why are you mad about that? That she made...
Oh, mad at Rachel?
Yeah, they were mad at Rachel because she made money off of other deals, like selling her story. And I'm like, why would you be upset about that? I don't understand. Like...
Yeah. I
just feel like that wasn't written well. Like, why was Laverne... She was like, Laverne Cox kept saying, like, you made a dime off your friend. And I'm like, okay, so now we're back to being friends with her? I was like, what's the big deal? She made money off of a terrible situation. I don't know.
Yeah. I was poking around on the real Rachel's Instagram, and real Rachel really did not like the inventing Anna situation, which I don't blame her.
Interessant.
But it was she was pleading her case all over the place.
Oh God, whatever. I don't know. I guess it's not so much like I don't care how the characters felt about it in this TV show. Right. I just feel as though like it should have been written a little bit better. Like where is the loyalty? How are we feeling towards Anna? And have that be a little bit more clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so nice highlight on inventing Anna. So really quickly, I wanted to talk about The Dropout.
Yes.
Have you started watching it, Bianca?
Well, of course, because I don't know if you know this story, but I was like talking to Theben about it.
Yeah.
Because there's just a really cute moment that I will always cherish between me and Theben, where I came home to Gianna and I's place in college, and Gianna wasn't there, and Theben was just on the couch about to watch the HBO documentary about Elizabeth Holmes, And I came in, I was like, oh, hey, Theban, like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to watch this documentary. Like, do you want to watch it with me? And I was like, yeah. And so Theban and I it was like our first alone moment together.
Wow.
And I just really cherish it. So whenever I found out that The Dropout was coming to Hulu, I was messaging Theban like, oh my gosh, are you ready? We're going to watch this. And like, I don't think he thinks it's as prominent to our relationship as I do.
No, I think he does, because you and I hadn't talked about this, but when The Dropout was coming out, Theban and I, we talked about how you guys watched it. So anyways, love.
Oh, I'm glad he remembers our moment together.
Well, and I don't have too much to say about like the show as of now. Like there's some interesting...
Are you all caught up?
Yeah, I'm all caught up.
Okay.
You know, there's some interesting talk about like the visuals of Elizabeth Holmes and you know, how she caters her look. And you know, we can talk about that some other time if you guys are interested in that. But there is a very like symbolic moment in, I don't know, I want to say maybe the second or third episode where she is trying to get investors. And she goes to that investor, Dawn, whose office is all decked out in like Western decor. So, you know, the scene goes, she's going to all these different investors in, you know, like Silicon Valley, whatever, and she's just getting like knocked down one by one. And so she goes to this last spot. She's waiting to get an interview with this guy, a meeting, and the receptionist tells her that they can't have their meeting, it's canceled. And so you just like feel like the desperation, like this is her last moment of hope. And right before that all goes down, we get a shot of her looking at a small sculpture on the table that is the end of the trail. You all know about this piece. Bianca's shaking her head.
It's just, for me, it was real noticeable.
Of course, I saw it and I was like, end of the trail.
It was just, I was like, ooh, oh baby.
I was like, I don't know how I feel about comparing, you know, the displacement of Native people to the trials and tribulations of Elizabeth Holmes, but I see what you were going for. Like, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with this piece, we can certainly share an image of it and you can look it up now. Again, The End of the Trail. Basically, it reinforces this concept, not a concept, this idea and fact of like the vanishing Indian, specifically like from the landscape, from the location. And then this work portrays a very exhausted Sioux person who is clearly kind of dropping, hanging over this horse that he's riding. So he's the rider, and both the horse and the rider are clearly physically exhausted. So with her being exhausted in this moment, it was interesting. And this investor was like very much like cowboy aesthetic, had a cowboy hat. Again, the whole room was filled with like Western decor. But that's a really loaded piece. And there, you know, we have the huge sculpture at the National Cowboy Hall of Fame here in Oklahoma City. And there are a lot of other smaller cast versions of it all over. But it's pretty well-known piece. So I suppose if you needed to visually make some kind of comparison that people would like need to get, I understand using like a well-known piece. It was just interesting, I thought. And I was wondering if you had noticed it too.
I noticed the whole aesthetic of the office immediately because it felt so familiar to us. And I think it was very Oklahoma State. You know, maybe we've talked about this on APT, the Frederick Remington sculpture that I fucking hate so much. So it was giving me that energy already, which already felt relatable as visual cues go, kind of harping on this Western identity.
I mean, anytime you see clearly like a bronze cast, small horse sculpture, it's like your mind just kind of instantly goes there. And takes us back to like home.
Right. But And Gianna, I see what you're saying in terms of a set designer finding this and honing in on that aspect of the nature of the locale and the needs for the office itself, but also using it to make points about the story. I understand that, but I think this might be worthy of another episode in itself, but how can set designers not play into a problematic stereotypical example from art history to make your point? Because to make your point, you shouldn't rely on the vanishing of other people's in a completely different, unrelated scenario. We at APT understand that art is subjective and relatable in different ways. We understand that, but you're a set designer and you have the power to make those decisions. You know, and you're enforcing something onto the viewer that is not the subjective experience that you might get in a museum.
You know what? You're so right, because I'm sure if we wanted to, and I mean, I'm having other thoughts like roll in my head. Like, we have moments where like we are looking at other things through the lens of the character, whether like the character is looking at art and we don't know, or just a scene playing out in front of them and there's no dialogue, but we understand what that person is feeling and experiencing. So like there could have been an image of like a cow on the wall and she could have just been staring at this image of this cow and just like making eye contact with it or
like
something.
Herding cattle, something like that.
Anything. And you're right. It more has to do with the visuals than it does this historical work of art. It's just about how you play the field and how you do that appropriately. But that was a wild comparison if I have ever seen one.
I like this idea, Gianna. This is definitely a noteworthy conversation to expand upon. So
well, I watched that episode I think last night, and I had kind of been watching it throughout the day today, and I just immediately popped it in the script.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did, because I've been watching it alone here, and when I watched that episode, I was like, what the fuck? So that's funny. I wish we would have been able to watch that together. That would have been like, oh god. So Gianna, let's take a little break, and whenever we come back, it's gonna be all you, honey. Ready for the recap?
Fine wine has long been a cornerstone of wealth generation and preservation. The problem, historically, it's been reserved for the ultra-wealthy. VinoVest is changing that. If you know us, 1, you know that your 2 Italian co-hosts come from a wine-loving and wine-making family. And 2, you know that making smart financial decisions, especially for women, is really important to how we think about money on this podcast. I was amazed at how easy it was to get started in diversifying your investment portfolio. Getting into investing or growing your portfolio can be intimidating when you're new to the game. Wine has 1/3 the volatility of the stock market and has outperformed the global equities market over the past 30 years, with 10.6% annualized returns, proving that the returns can be as robust as your favorite red. VinoVest makes it easy to acquire new investments equipped with a team of world-class sommeliers who evaluate wine and determine which ones will gain value over time. You own the wines in your portfolio outright. You can buy, sell, and even drink them whenever you want. Go to zen.ai/artpoptalk to receive 2 months of fee-free investing. Be sure to mention that Art Pop Talk is helping you save on 2 months of management fees. It's time to start investing with VinoVest today. All right, everybody, and welcome back. So for today's Art Pop Talk, we are all Xenos and we are all traveling to Greece, but I'm assuming that probably a lot of our friends are coming down from their spring break travels as well. So instead of shoving all the archaeological, historical knowledge into your freshly hungover brains, today I'm sharing funny travel stories and fun fact Easter eggs I came across while bopping around in Athens, Santorini, and in Crete.
I'm very excited. I think this is also going to be just a cool conversation because I'm sure that a lot of people are familiar with the big stuff, you know, the Acropolis, Palace at Knossos, but some of the better kind of travel insights or, you know, little aesthetic art historical finds are those little things that aren't in your textbooks, you know?
Ah, yes, let me write your textbook for you. That would be so amazing and so tragic at the same time.
We would write a great textbook. It would just be like, this is trash.
It would be fucking hilarious. Okay, so I'm actually going to give you guys a list of things that I'm going to talk about. And Bianca, just let me know what you think we should dive into first. So choose wisely. And probably a lot of this isn't going to make any sense. So first, French flight safety video, keychain lady, Tula, the bridal dress consultant, is this authentic? ? Trees that signify death, and video game trees, aka reminds me of Minecraft. So, you have a lot of options. Which one shall we talk about first?
Okay, so I love this Jeopardy style choices that you're giving me. I think maybe the one that I am biased towards because I haven't heard you talk about it since you've been home is the keychain lady.
Lady. Yes. So, Bianca, I've been dying to talk to you about this. So,
I'm so excited.
Keychain lady is the new McDonald's. And
Gianna, I saw a boy today at the parade that straight up sent me back.
And I'm not sure we've explained the McDonald's German kid before to our Pop-Tarts. And it's just not funny. And I'm sorry that, like, you guys have to bear the brunt of, like, being on the outside of an inside joke. Like, I understand that this might not be super funny, but Bianca and I were not in Germany that long. I think that
a few days.
Was it a few days?
Yeah.
Anyways, we were trying to get somewhere because we were trying to get on, like, a subway, and we were down in the station, and there was, like, a dirty, like, grimy little, like, McDonald's.
Subway McDonald's.
Subway McDonald's.
You know.
Hits different, apparently, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this pudgy little...
All we can describe him as the real-life Augustus Gloop, and I don't mean that in a negative light, but the real-life Augustus Gloop
was, like, as soon...
Foaming at the mouth.
As he saw the Subway McDonald's, like, the glint in his eyes. And this all, like, it's so funny because it, like, all happened in the span of a second. And
but this is also a packed subway, you know, terminal station. Like, it's fairly busy. And Gianna and I just lock in on the same thing happening at like one single second of time.
Oh my god. So basically this kid just lets out a Dad, McDonald's.
And let me tell you, this boy, his it's like the Grinch. You know when you say the Grinch, his heart grew 10 times that day? This boy's eyes grew 10 times in one moment of seeing McDonald's. And I wholeheartedly understand that feeling, but I have never seen it exerted so perfectly on someone's face.
At that point, just, like, getting on the actual, like, subway was just took every energy in my body to try to, like, go on from there. I was like, if I died right here in this dirty German subway, I would die so happy.
Because we know that he
well,
saw
and also
McDonald's.
because I know that I'll never be happier than that kid when he saw McDonald's, so I should just give up. So let me just say that, like, the same joy in this pudgy German child's eyes was the same joy that I saw in Miss Giuliana Borrow's eyes.
That's not where I thought this was going.
When she saw Keychain Lady, as we call her. So, what is Keychain Lady?
You might be wondering.
Asking.
Get to the fucking point.
Get to the fucking point, bitch. Been off the air way too long. So, we were in the Athens airport what felt like 20 times because we went in the off season. There are no ferries that run between the islands right now. So you have to go back to Athens and then you have to fly back out to wherever it is you're going. So we gave a lot of money to Aegean Airlines because we were on that flight twice after International Women's Day. We got these two separate keychains. So basically, Aegean Airline was giving out these keychains for International Women's Day, but they were also only giving them out to the, quote, women on the plane. And so at first when we got them, if you're like, what is this? Like, and we were looking at it and, you know, kind of laughing at just like, oh, what is this, like, shitty airplane gift? But so it's this keychain, and Bianca, I have a picture of it, and it's like a collab with some kind of like designer company, whatever. It's just a keychain of a lady, but it says for the Aegean lady traveler. And it's kind of, I think it's like a goddess. It's like Athena. It's basically like the goddess keychain collection reminding you that there's one in every woman, okay? Piece of plastic, it's fine. At one point, and I can't remember which flight this was, there was a girl sitting next to Giuliana, and they were handing out Keychain Lady again. And I think it was the second time. I can't even remember at this point. But they didn't give this girl one because they didn't think that she was a girl. And so her and her friends, this girl who was an American, so we like overheard them talking about how like she's wearing a baseball cap. Like they were like, oh, they didn't give me one because they think I'm a boy. And so on top of all of that, there's just like much discussion about like how we go about International Women's Day and how this airline handled that being interesting. I don't understand if this is a gift like for a woman, that's fine, but why can't you give one to your supposed male traveler or whoever is traveling, and then if that's a gift, they can give that to somebody else. But also, like, why can't they celebrate International Women's Day with a gift with also a lady keychain, with also Keychain Lady? But anyways, whatever. Like, that was a very interesting part of this experience. But I think after getting them a couple times, like, Giuliana was like really excited about them. And I think like we kind of started to like expect Keychain Lady, and we're like, oh, where's my fucking keychain? At any rate, at some point we each ended up with two. So it wasn't just the joy in her eye when she first got Keychain Lady. It was also like the despair when she realized that she left her second one in her like seat back pocket. You know, that's why they tell you not to shove shit in there. And so we're like getting off of the plane. So the plane lands, we're getting off of it, and Giuliana's like, oh no, wait, I can't find my other Keychain Lady for the lady traveler. And I'm like, do you want me to grab it for you? And she was like, I was like, oh, I was trying to find it. And she was like, oh no, it's okay. as we're leaving, she's like, keychain lady. This is horrible. I'm sorry.
Oh, this is the funniest thing.
She
know.
lets out audibly like keychain lady, and like her arm is like over the seat, like oh no, I left her behind. Like she was so sad. But then I think all ended well in this horrible story that I'm relating, because I think Rita gave her second one.
Oh my god.
But some of them are like, they all look different too. So like she really wanted like two that look different.
This is not the same, but when you said keychain lady for your lady traveler, it reminded me of my miracle pill for the middle-aged man. My keychain lady for the lady traveler.
Keychain lady. Like, I'm sorry I left you behind. Like, oh my god. And then I had to walk off of this plane just like cracking up. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
And she's in front of me, so I'm just like
fantastic.
silently like cackling as I am trying to efficiently walk down the aisle. And I'm like, I would have tried to grab it for you. And then she was, was like, no, it's okay. Like, it's fine. And then keychain lady. So that's all to say that there's one thing that like always sticks out when you're traveling that you will just never forget. That's the funniest thing that happens on your trip. And so that's what I thought.
But I love that you have a memento from it too, because the only thing from McDonald's is I just have the memory that I hope will never leave my brain cells. But now you have a token of this moment, which is also very sweet.
Yes, I do have it. So, I mean, I'm not mad about her. Like, I like Keychain Lady. I just feel like she's for everybody. Not.
I mean, Keychain Lady in herself is maybe not the most problematic thing, but
the way that they handed them out.
The way that they handled Keychain Lady. Not so great.
Right, they dishonored Keychain Lady.
They dishonored her.
Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
Dishonor on your airline.
So, anyways, but other than that, flying to Gene was fine. I just don't understand why they had to be so selective about it.
Yeah, that's weird.
Oh, that was weird.
I'm just relating this to the museum world again, because I feel like this is a moment where you are supposed to be so fucking grateful for anything that the airline gives you.
Oh my god.
And that's a moment that I've had. I've flown Lufthansa before to Greece. Actually, I flew them. The most fucking incredible air, Lufthansa and Swiss Air. Oh my god, when they gave us like bread on our flight, I was like, this is amazing. So I feel like the Keychain Lady for an airline to give you something that, and I don't know if this is just an American thing, that American airlines are stingy as fuck and I can't even get peanuts or a glass of water or whatever. Norwegian is also that way too. I hated Norwegian Airlines. But when you get something for an airline, it's like, oh my god,
I know, it's like
so great,
precious gold.
Thank you.
Right, like, this is actually Athena, and I must hold her dearly.
Can I eat her? No. Am I still hungry after only a mini bag of pretzels? Yes, but
yeah, and it is with like some kind of, like designer. So I don't know. I feel like it was interesting. I've never gotten a gift, or I guess when I'm traveling, it's never been on like a holiday before. So maybe other people have experienced things where they've handed out gifts. So anyways, we can move on from that. But while we're on the flight train of thought, I just have to talk about this French Airlines bougie AF safety video. And my layover was in Paris, which is why I was flying with that airline, whatever. So, and I still don't know like why I'm mad about the safety video, or even how I feel about it. Maybe I've had time to like process it, and now I'm not angry about it, but I just want to talk about it. So why am I so hung up on it? It's a very creative and maybe even entertaining way of getting you this information, I suppose. But the comparisons in this like French safety video were just wild. For example, sitting at your artisan secretary's desk was therefore equal to lifting your tray table up. Lifting your beach lounge chair up is the same as putting your airplane chair in its upright and locked position. Also, they said to retract your leg rest twice in this video. Retract your leg rest, which means that somebody on this plane had a leg rest, and I have no leg rest. So I think part of this was also just like, who the fuck on this plane has a leg rest? Like, who are you? Come forward, show yourself. This safety video is not for me. This is for the people at the front of the plane in their little cubes. Like, this is not for me. I do not have time for this. I do not have time for you. Other things that were shown: walking the runway while showing me my emergency exits in fashion. Then there's a scene where they're asking you to unplug your chargers, while during takeoff. But why would that be a problem? Because you can get to know the person sitting next to you. Or, in the case of this video, you have 4 yards of room between you and your neighbor to flirt on an obnoxiously long yellow bench. And I have a picture that I hope you all reference. You can find on our Instagram. Ridiculous. Like, why would you make this comparison? Like, you could have put them on a normal bench. Like, in any other, situation, they were showing people at, French cafes, loading their luggage in hotel rooms. Even, the fashion runway thing. That's a creative way of, showing you, your exits. That's fine. But, if you can show people with fake seatbelts sitting at a cafe in Paris, you can show them in a park sitting on a normal bench. But instead, you thought it would be a great idea to show how much room these people have to flirt it up in this fictitious scene, where I, on the other hand, am wedged in between Miss Rita and Giuliana Porro, and the only person to flirt with is, in fact, Giuliana Porro. So, what is a girl to do?
Gianna, I really don't know that I have much to say about this, because
Really? You don't?
An inventing Anna situation where, I'm kind of here for it. But I don't want to get on the bad side of French Airways or whatever it is, Air France.
Yeah, whatever.
Because I just know that I will be flying them again, and I think it's so typically French, which is maybe why I kind of love it, but I also understand that it is ridiculous. Someone did come up with a very creative way to explain this information that nobody generally listens to anyway. But whenever they have these videos, I don't know, I kind of love it, but I wasn't there with you experiencing it, so I don't know, maybe I would feel differently.
Well, so
if I didn't have a leg lift or whatever, leg rest.
So, yeah, and I understand that this is very obnoxious, but this is just part of the travel visuals that I absorbed that stuck in my brain that, I thought would be kind of just fun to share again than just shoving down all this more useful knowledge down your throats today, because this is not useful. But speaking of that, so the video's on YouTube. I found it and I've linked it for your reference. So you can watch this, and it's also fairly long because it's it's 6 minutes long because it's in French and it's in English. So it's also double the communication, double the visuals as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so so they have one flight attendant speaking for each language. It's just interesting. I think I was just painfully aware that I'm a peasant, and I think I was also a little bummed that I wasn't going to Paris too. Even though, because it's kind of hard when you're going abroad and you have a layover somewhere and you're this is also equally a cool place. I could just spend time here. And I had a 3-hour layover in the Paris airport, and all I did was get
that would be heartbreaking.
Lottery Macron to say that I got one in
I love that
Paris. So that was fun. Oh, and we got croissants to say that we ordered a croissant.
I'm already jealous though. I was
you sent me photos of your croissant. I was like, I don't even care that it's an airport croissant.
Airport croissant. Oui.
My favorite.
So that was all my lovely, like, plain stories for you guys, but I highly recommend watching the safety video. Go to YouTube. I'll link it on our channel for you.
Okay, next up on the list, I want to hear about these Minecraft trees.
Minecraft trees and death trees. I'm just gonna kind of tallying them off together. Let's go. So we can start with the cypress tree, which are pretty abundant in Athens mostly. I think there are more so in Crete than there is Santorini. I mean, there's like no vegetation in Santorini because it's more of like a volcanic island and just it's very small. So the cypress is the symbol of immortality as an emblem of eternal life after death, and in fact is often found in or near cemeteries. So that was something that I definitely noticed. And Bianca, I've actually included a picture for us here, and this is from the Acropolis. And you can see in the distance where we have the cityscape right in front of the mountain, and there's like a dark patch in the middle. And all of that is cypress trees, which is the cemetery in Athens. So in Greek mythology, the god Apollo had fallen in love with I think you would also say Cyprus, although it's spelled a little differently. But Cyprus had a pet deer that was gifted to him by Apollo, and he was like obsessed with this deer, apparently. So while he was practicing with his bow one day, or he was hunting, he actually struck the deer and it died. So Cyprus was overcome with grief, and he prayed to Apollo that he might be allowed to mourn forever. Apollo cautioned him against such a request, but still Cyprus grieved. And so the sympathetic Apollo transformed him into a cypress tree. Because of its ties with death, the cypress tree is also considered to be the tree of Hades. The cypress tree it came up a lot on the trip. Obviously, they're a main part of the landscape. We have this part of mythology that, of course, comes up a lot when you're on a walking tour, for example. But cypress wood is just very durable. It's stable. It's water resistant. It's rot resistant. And it is used even today for building material. So it is a commodity. The wood of the cypress trees were also used to construct columns or pillars if we're looking at the Minoan age, before Greeks and Greek mythology. So it's just been a prevalent part of this place's history for a long time, something as simple as this tree. So I thought that'd be fun to talk about. And we know this from archaeological sites like Knossos. In the Minoan age, the cypress trees were used in the construction of the main palace and central living quarters. The trunks were put upside down, so the broader part supported the roof construction. For stability, they would also use wooden frames as well. In between the wooden frames, then you would have that kind of filled with stones and other sturdier material. Also, going back to talking about wood as a commodity, the cypress tree was a very important export product. In the past, the wood was used as a trade for gold and ivory with countries now, such as Egypt and Syria, and along Asia Minor. A lot of this gold and ivory has been discovered in the palace, and we know that it was traded because gold is not a natural resource of Crete, where Knossos is. So I've actually shared a picture, and again, you guys can look at this on our resources on Instagram. But we have this small construction of what part of the palace would look like, and we can see that the pillar is reconstructed because one, it's colored, and two, it's made out of like concrete or like a gypsum cement. And this would be originally made out of wood. And we can see those still concrete, but they're actually painted to look like wood, what would have been like wooden slats. If we're moving on and we're talking about these, what I call them Minecraft trees, I don't know, guys. I was just feeling like when I saw this tree, I felt like I was walking around in a simulation. There's something about them that don't feel supernatural. They look too perfect. And of course, they're not familiar to my natural landscape, like my everyday reality. But Bianca, please tell me I'm not crazy. And I was also in shock to find out that when I was trying to figure out what the name of this tree was, it came up as a Norfolk Island pine, which is wild because I have a Norfolk Island pine that I use as my Christmas tree, and it doesn't look like this. I know that there are like different kind of variations of plants or what have you, but there is something about this plant with the leaves going up instead of down, and then also the separation between each section and the trunk, which is very skinny. I don't know. I was like, this tree is not real.
No, I completely understand what you're saying. It's almost hard to describe because it doesn't look real, I guess.
It doesn't look
looks
real.
like your little Minecraft tree that's next to it. Or, yeah, it looks like something that is fabricated to look trendy.
It reminds me of, we don't really have them here, but they have them on the East Coast. They're telephone poles, and they disguise them to look like trees.
Yeah.
I was also like, the way that it's segmented is just super interesting, and they're everywhere. They kind of are like, which cacti is like a native plant there too, but it kind of reminds me of like, I feel like if you see like a cactus or something, it's very specific, or it feels very like indigenous to that.
Dimensional or something.
It feels like it belongs in that landscape.
Space.
That space. And this is how this tree felt too, but I was like, I was like, am I like Free Guy? Am I like not, am I in a simulation? Have I been brought to reality and have a consciousness? Well, Bianca, since you have picked out all the talking points you wanted me to go through, we do just have one more. And this brings me to kind of the best talking point of the episode, which is the question, is it authentic? Which is a little inside jokey again, but also something I really wanted to talk about when you are looking at a reconstructed artifact or archaeological site. How do you know what is authentic? I'll explain a little bit. So my precious aunt, who is a super big history buff and whose lifelong dream was to go to Greece and see places like Knossos, was completely overwhelmed by the artifacts at each site and in museums, and would keep asking, is this authentic? Don't tell me this is authentic. This is not authentic. Don't tell me this is authentic. Just wide-eyed and in disbelief of what she was seeing. And it was so cute and funny to watch her go to each point and be like, don't tell me this is authentic. But she like has a point. It's a complex thing to try to rack your brain around. What is the original? What pieces are fabricated? Then you can get into it even a little bit further, and you're thinking about, how was it reconstructed? Where was it when it was found? And what did it look like when it was found too? Like what did the pieces look like? How was it broken up? And also, why is the museum showing it to me in this way? I mean, like, that's when we start really getting into like the mind fuck of it all. It is kind of a lot. So for myself, not only am I thinking about what is authentic and what is reconstructed in the moment, but I'm also thinking about what images were shown to me to study in the classroom. In an undergrad art history class, you usually only have time to focus on the essence of the image. What are we learning from? What are we seeing? And what can we take from this time period moving on? There isn't time to always get into the archaeological aspects, the excavation aspects, and even the museum practices of it all too regarding these artifacts. So it's a little confusing when you see these works in person for the first time. So if I am taking some examples of some things that I notice and things that I studied in the classroom, we can look at the bull leaping fresco from 1449 BCE. And I have two images here. One is kind of like a clearer, nicer close-up image. But when you're looking at this particularly flat digital image, it's really hard to process where are the actual pieces of the fresco and what has actually been interpreted, what's been drawn in. And you don't really get a sense for how people have tried to reconstruct things like frescoes or mosaics or even pieces of pottery really until you're looking at it in person and looking at that collection together. Because another interesting thing about piecing artifacts together is that there's like debate about that, especially from an archaeological standpoint, because these were reconstructed a while ago, right? And we don't have those same reconstruction practices that we do today. But at what point do we then go back and fix what has already been done and reconstructed to that original thing? Do you understand how I'm like going down the freaking rabbit hole here? It's wild.
Yeah, no, this is really interesting. I also think it's kind of wild how, you know, they say with the Last Supper, there will be a point in time where none of Da Vinci's actual work will be left on the piece itself. Or, you know, even with the Acropolis, they have to do maintenance on it. They have to preserve it in this specific way. But at what point will it not exist in its original state anymore? Or is there a percentage, or, you know, that we qualify it as being completely reconstructed or something?
And it's different for each site based on who has come in before, who has found that site, who has excavated it, and what practices were in place then. Like if we take like the Temple of Zeus into consideration, you can barely even see that temple. One, because it's small, but two, because it's covered in so much scaffolding. There is a column, however, that has fallen, and they aren't going to rebuild that column. They're going to leave it, because showing you how that column has fallen is also preservation of that record of that historical site. If we're going back to like a place like Knossos, there's so much about that site that is incredibly important. I think the person who first found that site and excavated it is super interesting, Sir Arthur John Evans. And he was British and surprisingly wasn't a total asshole, and actually wanted to like not steal things. And he wanted to create that site for tourist purposes. But the reason why we have this reconstruction of this pillar made out of gypsum cement and we can see where that wood would have been is because he rebuilt the site. That is no longer like a practice that will be in place. Like the rest of Knossos or places like Akrotiri, any other historical sites will not be rebuilt like this, because it's important to just preserve the history in the way that it is. Because also you're building on top of a site that we still don't know so much about as well.
Right.
And it's interesting to see how even this landscape was already created and kind of maneuvered in preparation for tourism. There are cypress trees that are planted on this site specifically for tourists to look at the cypress trees because they're essential to that landscape. So those are things that wouldn't be done today, but we're just not going to like destroy this thing.
The tree, yeah.
We're not going to just uproot these trees, and we're not going to destroy this thing that Sir Arthur John Evans made, because that's now part of the history for the good or the bad. The last example I will pull out is the caryatids from the Erechtheion at the Acropolis. And when you're looking at caryatids, which are female figures that replicate or replace a pillar or a column to hold up a roof, you look at them in their original context, in their original place of being outside on the porch of the Erechtheion, right? We're not looking at images of them where they are displayed now. When you go to the Acropolis and the Acropolis Museum, you will see that the original caryatids are inside the museum. What you see at the actual site are exact replica casts of how they look now, if that makes sense. Except for the one that is at the British Museum of Art. So if you go to the Acropolis Museum, there is a place waiting for the column that is at the British Museum of Art, along with a bunch of other stuff. So that's really interesting. And that's also knowledge that like I was a little bit privy to. And it was kind of interesting, you know, traveling with Gianna or even Rita for that matter, but kind of being like, wait, like, and the Acropolis was the first place that we really went. And I was talking to Jewel about this, about like, wait, so like those aren't real. So it's like, what do we preserve? What do we take inside? And I mean, obviously, I am clearly no expert on that, but I think the line probably gets moved with time. But I mean, the Acropolis is just like the pride and joy of Athens. So, I mean, preservation is a must with that site. But it is just incredibly interesting. So as cute as it was to be like, don't tell me this is authentic, like this cannot be real. Like, wait, is that real? Is that fake? It's a lot. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, there's something interesting to the idea of perception when it comes to objects. And there are moments, yeah, I think every kind of person who loves art or has a favorite work of art has that moment when they've been waiting to see something in person for so long, and we're so used to seeing it digitized, seeing all these digitized works from afar. And when you finally get there, you have this moment of, wait, what?
Right, I'm not looking at the real thing. Or on the flip side, I get to see these things up close, and that was not their original intent. If you...
Yeah.
The cool thing about the Acropolis Museum is that it is
such an amazing museum.
It's really cool. And surprisingly, it has some controversy. People don't like the architecture, which is wild because the architecture is not the star of the show. The architecture is a facility and is an exact replica of how you would walk in the Parthenon. It's just there to be a model for you. It's not there to be like a big, beautiful building. It's a tool. And I think people just don't like it because they don't think it's pretty. But I thought it was incredible. But when you're looking at things up close, like these ginormous metopes, for example, or even the Panthenetic procession, we have the ability to look at that up close because of the way it's displayed. And that was not its original intent.
Right.
It's just crazy.
Right. Same with like David and things like that.
Yeah. Right. So it really does take your breath away. And so, yeah, I thought that museum was lovely. And it's like all glass. So you can also have a view of the Acropolis while you're there.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of other things that I would love to talk to you guys about, but I know that we are running out of time. Obviously, anywhere you go in Greece is just like, this could be an excavation site. So like building is super weird. But there was an interesting discussion about their new like subway station in this kind of metro area that was built on top of a grave site actually. And they have a skeleton on display in this metro station.
Whoa.
And I talked to one of my tour guides about it, about what her thoughts were about, you know, bones on display, bodies on display. I didn't come across bones on display as much on this trip as I did like in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
But everywhere you go, people have different opinions about it. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like civilization has continued. Like Athens needed a metro station. What do you do?
Right.
It's wild.
Totally.
But to put the body on display in the metro station, Bianca, we might have to piggyback on that later.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I know that's a similar problem with Rome, too. You can't do a lot of digging in Rome because of that same issue, and you have to travel like outside of the city to get your gasoline because they can't
drill
have pipes, run up through the city. So yeah, well, Gianna, thank you so much for sharing your adventures with us today.
I am for sure aware that was like a lovely hot mess, but I hope you guys had fun. I think that's a nice.
We're warming up. I think it was great.
Episode to come back to.
Yeah. And next week, like we said, we have 2 very special guests joining us. So we'll be back next week with Audrey and Sammy. So Gianna, any last words?
Just, I don't know, hold on to your keychain, ladies, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Art Pop Talks executive producers are me, Bianca Martucci-Fink.
And me, Gianna Martucci-Fink.
Music and sounds are by Josh Turner, and photography is by Adrian Turner.
And our graphic designer is Sid Hammond.